All right, coach. So I know we have you on before, and you're basically a legend in our field. So I'm not gonna like ask you to introduce yourself again.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
so, so I'm gonna just straight asking you questions. So I remember
Awesome.
last time we talked a little bit about spinal engine theory, power clean, hand clean, those stuff. So and after the podcast we did, I was listening to other podcasts you did with other strength coaches. So, um, I guess I want to start by asking you, like, what are some your thoughts on like traditional periodization? Because I know you talked about that before, and that was like a really interesting topic.
Yeah. Well, traditional periodization is looks really good in a textbook and in theory. And also we have to remember now, traditional periodization wasn't originated by Tudor Bompa and wasn't originated by the East Germans and I mean the Eastern Bloc countries. I mean the Greeks used a 4-day training cycle, which was really cool. We need to go back and look at what they did. But no, I think that I fell into that, when I first started coaching and probably for my first 10 years of coaching where I was really strict about, the cycles and all of that kind of stuff. And I began to realize that, you know, most of what I planned ended up having to be changed on a periodic basis because of circumstances and different, uh, excuse me, different periods and ability to adapt, and that. So I think understanding the concepts of periodization and understanding that periodization is not about time, this is really important. It's about timing. It's about when you adapt the stress that's needed to force adaptation in relation to that athlete at that period of time of their training. Okay, so I don't know if it's block or whatever. I like to think usually of 6 week would be mesocycles or blocks, where I have a period of preparation, which is general type of work. I have a period of and fairly the stimulus is more volume, and then I have a period of adapt. I'm sorry, preparation, adaptation, where the intensity goes up, the volume stays the same or reduces, and then I have a period of application, and that's when it's really a sharp period. It could be a competition period or whatever. And by the way, I could be in a lot of sports today. I may be competing during all those times. Okay. So it really demands uh, knowing your sport, knowing your athlete, and knowing how they respond. So I think a lot of the principles it's good to understand, but recognize that the body is highly adaptable to the various stresses that are placed upon it, but it's a lot less predictable than what we were taught with traditional periodization. And the other thing, the elephant in the room or the 800-pound gorilla is drugs. So if you really understand, and I was privy to get a lot of the Eastern stuff because I was editing a journal named Track Technique, and stuff would get to me that wouldn't get to other people. And if you look carefully at some of the cycles, they're just drug cycles. They're periods of time, and that. So I think we got hoodwinked, so to speak, by some KGB misinformation, and that. So planning is really important. But you have to remember, and we use the war analogy of D-Day when the Americans invaded Europe and incredible detailed plans. And within 5 minutes of the start of the invasion, all those plans went to hell in a handbasket because this huge storm and that as a student of history, that was also a lesson to me that planning is important, but and there were times earlier in my career where I was too married to to the plan. And I always joke now that it used to be written in stone, now it's written in erasable pencil. Okay, so is that thorough enough answer, or does that make
Yeah, yeah,
sense?
yeah. That's really good. That's really good because uh the reason I kind of asked this is I remember like back in a few weeks ago I was helping another like strength coach like kind of map out like what he should do in the next few weeks. And we were talking about like in season versus off season. And I was like, there's no way you'll know what's gonna happen like after 8 weeks. No
Yeah,
way you know that.
yeah. Well, it's the way I put it. We all have a prediction addiction, right? We want to sometimes we want to see into the future, and what we're trying to do, and what we have to do is predict into the future. So, like you said, you start training camp next week, and I don't know when the first competition is, and you play in the G League. I'm not sure how many games, less than 84 games, I think, but so you're and you already have a rhythm. You're home, away, so that dictates certain things for you. You have starters versus bench players, more minutes, less minutes. So those are all things we take into consideration in the planning process. And I think we have to look really closely at adaptability. How well does that individual, how do they adapt? Do they adapt quickly? Are they slow adapters? All of that. And that's an integral part of it, I think. And that I don't see that articulated very well in a lot of the periodization literature.
Nice, nice. Another thing about like periodization is most of the people use 7 days. So can you kind of share your thoughts on like this 7 day cycle?
And otherwise known as the Judeo-Christian periodization model. So the big guy, if you believe in God, worked for 6 days and he rested on the seventh, right? So here's what happens. Here's what I found. I learned my about 1978 when once we got a few athletes at Cal, particularly with an academic schedule. With 7 days, we're trying to cram too much in. And so I either, depending on the situation, I either go 7 or 14 days. Okay. And then I can look at the various training stresses and stimuli and distribute them in a manner that doesn't force too much density and too much congestion. All right. So even within that 14 days or 10 days, I have a period of preparation, a period of adaptation, and a period of application. And what I've tried to do too, uh, to negate the Judeo-Christian periodization model, I try to start it a lot of times. Day one is Saturday or Sunday, and then in an academic setting where the athletes have a heavy load on Monday, then that's a lot of times just an active rest day. Okay, so I can manipulate, and even Mondays are stressful days, just the way our society is set up. So you can manipulate where day one is based on that. So, yeah, it's what's convenient isn't always right. Okay. And your fixtures list, your competitions are going to dictate a fair bit of, sometimes, I mean, you can't be strict 14. You can't be, it might be a couple of days longer, a couple of days shorter based upon what the fixtures list is. Right.
So if it's not like fixed, like 10 days, 7 day, or 14 days, how do you able to like cycle through like this 7 day to like next maybe like 10
Yeah.
days to next?
Very good question. So I always think about uh, they're overlapping. Okay. So cycle one is overlapping and leading. I call it leading into cycle two and like that. just like I don't know if we talked about this last time. I do the same thing with workouts. So say today we have two sessions. Okay, the first session is pretty general, is to get everything connected. The second session is 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 a little more specific, a little higher intensity, but that's leading into one key session tomorrow. Well, I try to do the same thing with the microcycles so that they don't stand alone. They interconnect and interact. Ooh, what was that?
Cool, cool.
I got to turn this off. Sorry, go
So,
ahead.
another topic related to this is like neuromuscular fatigue,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
uh nowadays there's actually a lot of coaches use you're gonna hate me when I say this, but whatever. Because
Go ahead.
nowadays, like coaches use force play to
Yeah.
dictate, like, oh, the athlete fatigue or not. I know we kind of talked about this last time, but for me personally, I don't believe in like using force play to like monitor neuromuscular fatigue, right? For me, it's like seeing where the athletes are. Like, are they able to make shots? Are they like losing their coordination or not?
Yeah.
But you can't see that on force play, or the joint sequencing. But you can't see that on force play. So,
So,
uh, let's just forget everything I say. What are your thoughts on like uh
well,
neuromuscular fatigue?
I mean, fatigue in general, and the sources are neuromuscular. They can be impact for, driven. I hate to separate metabolic, but it's maybe they accumulated more yardage or something in a match or something like that. And again, it's knowing the athlete. It's not how did you prepare them for that particular, or how are they prepared for that particular day? What'd you do yesterday? What'd you do yesterday? That's what I said. That's why it leads in. And these things are not force platforms. They're expensive bathroom scales. True force platforms get 3 dimensions, not two. And we've used jump mats and opto jump and things like that for years, but it's only a very small window into neuromuscular fatigue. A lot of it is just body language. Look, if you want to gauge your fatigue level of your team, if they come into the weight room or they come out to the floor and it's dead silent, you better watch out. But if they're perky and they're laughing and joking around and doing stuff, that tells you right away that the level of excitement for the training session is there. So I think it demands knowing the athlete, closely monitoring, subjectively. I think if you want to use the so-called force platforms, the other thing is do not take the arms out, let the arms go in so you see overall coordination of how they achieve the jump and watch closely how they land. You can do simple things like just an over-the-back med ball throw and get just as good a predictive, and some repetitive jumps. Use jump rope. When a player or an athlete is fatigued, it's fun, and I've seen this for many years. They might be pretty good jump ropers, and you're going to say, okay, we're doing 4 sets of 50 jumps, and all of a sudden they get to 30 and they're all tangled up. So recognize that you're coaching the whole person, and you know your athletes. So look at them in the context of what you have planned, and then you also have to have a contingency plan. So yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I
Nice.
I I mean, there's to me there's just too much time now invested in that which could be invested in um, dynamic activities that could better prepare them for subsequent work to follow and warm them up. And recognize too that uh, warm up. If you use, there's parts of my warm up are always the same in the same sequence. So that's how I assess fatigue and training readiness. If they're real loud and percussive when they're skipping and that, you can pretty much predict that they're pretty beat up, too. So it
Can you kind
doesn't.
of like
Well, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
can you kind of like share like your warm up process, like you mentioned, like
Yeah.
yeah, the sequencing?
No jogging. No jogging. Okay, we'll either jump rope or we'll do easy striding, like in your case, basketball. So we'll do six length of the court, easy, easy, a little faster till you're at about 60%. Then you go over, you do some leg swings, uh, hip flexion and extension, A, B, and A deduction. Then you put a little 6-in mini band on, and you go from the baseline to the top of the key. You do side steps out and back. You do forward walk out and back, karaoke out and back, and monster walk. So that takes care of the groin. Then from there, you do a lunge and reach routine where you lunge and reach up, three reps at each position, forward, side, rotation, and you lunge and reach down and lunge and reach across. So now you've got, again, three dimensions. Then you go into coordination, skipping, sidestep, backward running, high skip with rotation. And then you would do specific warm up for maybe 5 to 8 minutes, maybe with the ball or related to what the coaches are going to do right away after practice. So that warm up done correctly is about 18 minutes.
Hmm. All right, another question kind of related to like periodization and neuromuscular fatigue is a circuit, and we also kind of talked about this last time.
Yeah.
So I'm a big track and field guy. So I actually train a lot of like sprinters, jumpers, even pole vaulters.
Mhm.
So like body weight circuit, like bodybuilding circuit, or even med ball circuit are big in like the track and field world. Do you think that like that those type of circuit will help build up like tissue tolerance or like some sort of like metabolic effect that will help athlete recover faster when they're fatigued?
Yeah, I mean, you're using terms that, I mean, everything's metabolic. It's metabolic right now. My lactate levels are probably point something, right? I just finished my walk or whatever. I've never gotten away from those. I've never gotten away from those types of circuit to with various different purposes anywhere. But what I've done is, if you look at a lot of my programs and a lot of my circuits, they're not 15, 18, 20 reps. They're 3, 4, 5, 6. And we might go 3 rounds of 5 exercises, with active recovery in between. It just depends. So I use those extensively now in cricket. I use them in we have a specific in swimming. We have a specific circuit based phase where they do um, circuits up to 20 minutes in length. Depends. Not sprinters, but sprinter circuits are different. So what traditionally has been done there, um, it's mostly sound. Yeah, and I don't think of the med ball work as circuits. I watched Otani the other day do our wall throw series, which has been around for, I don't know, a long time. We used it for many, many years. And somebody would say that's a circuit. So you go overhead throw, soccer throw, chest pass down the side, cross in front, around the back. And it's 120 reps, 20 reps at each position. And you do it continuously, and that can be used as preparation to bat or to pitch. It can be used as a lead in into practice, in your case, like that. Takes about 2 minutes. Now everything's connected in that. So my question always is, so what's the purpose? What am I doing this for? I take care of my little granddaughter every day at 3 o'clock. I was so tired yesterday. just taking her to this playground over by the Golden Gate Bridge, but that's not training. Making people tired isn't training. So it's really when you design, that's why these circuits. So like with my two beach volleyball players, they weren't partners. But they trained together, but they had different playing partners. And so because we lived in Florida at that time, most of the games were out here in California. So Thursday was their travel day. Friday was their pre-competition day, and they play Saturday, Sunday. Well, what we devised was a little 7-8 station circuit with a med ball with, if they could access some dumbbells, that was 4 to 6 reps of 8 exercises. And they knew themselves well enough if they felt like they were okay and, they would do one times. If they felt like they needed to wake up a little bit more, they would do more and then log it. So, so that, yeah, what you were taught and what you've done there is really good. I just think that what I see is remember it's the exercise, the number of sets, the number of reps, which is duration, and then rest between exercises, and then rest between circuits. So you can vary it a lot of different ways. And with what I've done in conditioning for basketball, for soccer, we'll do a 4 or 5 station circuit, and then we'll run 30, 40, 50 meters, and we used to do a shuttle circuit where 100 meters with 400-meter runners or something. So we'd have an exercise at one end, a 100-meter run, an exercise at the other end, down, back. 3 of those, rest, 5 times 3 of those, something like that. So, you know, again, it's your objective and the person. I think I said this to you last time. Coach the person in front of you, know what they need. Don't take one of your big five, your centers or your forwards and run them for an hour on the treadmill. You're going to get more out of a sprint on the treadmill, 5 exercises, a sprint on the treadmill, 5 exercises, and jumping rope than you will running steady distance.
Nice, nice. All right. So, I'm glad that you brought up like conditioning because I don't know why till this day people still like think that they can train separate energy system. So like can I know this is kind of stupid, but like can I kind of like talk me talk me through like your thoughts on this overall energy system thing?
That was the last chapter of the book we just reviewed yesterday. And when Fox and Matthews came out with the book Interval Training in 1973, I can remember the first time I still have it here, and they subsequently, and that's when they articulated the energy systems in the manner that, ATP, CP, LA, O2. And I go, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. And it was, okay? But the problem is they forgot, and we all got, you know, there's not a bunch of switches that go from one energy system to the other. Right now, my primary source of oxygen is oxidative, right? But I could run around the house once if I can make it, and now my respiration rate is going to be up. So first of all, stop trying to train energy systems. You can't isolate an energy system. It's a given that you sprint 10 seconds and that's ATP. Okay, so what? But there's also everything you're I'm sorry, I get excited here. You're uh deriving oxygen, through anaerobic sources. So I think you really have to understand what your objective is. So I was heavily influenced and have still been influenced. And so Fox and Matthews was really good, but I think a lot of people still and if you go to the different certification programs, they're still teaching this stuff, and you need to understand that all the energy systems are working. It's intensity driven, not time driven. That's the important thing, right? Intensity driven. And I was really influenced by Gerard Mach. He was a Polish guy. He was a national coach of Canada, genius. And so I my continuum is speed, uh, speed endurance. You have two types of speed endurance: special endurance, tempo, intensive tempo endurance, and extensive tempo endurance. And so that takes me across the spectrum about what I need and what I've done at times with soccer, and I did some with basketball, primarily with perimeter players, where we would go 30-second run at 70% and a 30-second jog. Okay. And they would do 12 of those. And then when they finished 12, they had to run 3 minutes for distance. Okay. So that's more aerobic. Okay. And then that was a benchmark workout. And we would do that once a week for 6 or 8 weeks. And we would add three 30-second runs until we were up to 24, But that's the end. The tag, as we called it, was always that 3 minute run on the end. So, there's a lot of roads to Rome, but again, I think that my overall message is I'm not trying to be contrarian. I'm not trying to be controversial. I was listening to a podcast today when I was walking. If you want to be really good, you have to be curious. And so when I see something, I'm curious. Now I've tried that. I tried it myself. It's no longer valid. I'm 78. For a long time, I did a lot of the workouts myself, and I could see, when I was in my 40s and even in my 50s sometimes. But so now if curiosity would lead me to, well, what happens? That's where we put that tag thing on the end. Okay. So now we've got that's that ability to hold your tempo for 3 minutes, which probably isn't as important in basketball, a little more important in soccer and that. So
Yeah. So, uh, I know you kind of mentioned this on James DeLacy's podcast and also Joe Smith podcast, but still,
yeah.
like, what if like someone say like certain basketball players not in shape? Do you do like uh MAS type of stuff or play more basketball or like I don't know.
Play more basketball, three on three full court. Uh, I would do that because chances are the reason they're not in shape is they've had a bad experience with uh, with running distance or something like that. So I will do a combination of, okay, you've got to 6 shots from a particular two different places, and then you have to sprint to the other baseline, and then we're going to do 5 backboard touches. You have to sprint back 6 shots, rest, boom, boom, boom. So you're creating game like scenarios, and that kind of stuff. Doing more aerobic work is not, jogging on the treadmill, doing the bicycle is not going to get them fit. That's the So do more circuit type of work, 8 to 12 minute circuits, 3 or 4 of those. Um, so you're trying to get them in shape for the game so they can play the game, right?
Nice, nice, nice. And I'm glad that you brought up Jordan Mock because like you speak on the other podcast like most of the coaches do the mock drill wrong. So
Yes.
can you kind of explain like what exactly did they get wrong and like what are like the the original thoughts on like the mock drill?
Well, first of all the mock drills, the A's and the B's, you're supposed to get 3 contacts per meter. So it's but what so there's your here's your rhythm. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
And what we're hearing is so they're just they're spending, they're not getting the foot back down under you. That's probably the biggest thing, and I mean he had his whole system. And I don't know if you can get a hold of the book. The Canadian Track and Field Association used to sell his manual, and I just collected a lot of stuff from him over the years, and was friends with athletes that Canadians in the early 70s and that educated me in the system. And then I attended a clinic that he did in 78 and here in the States. And then I watched him coach. I watched him coach in 75, winter of 76. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of too many drills, first of all, and just done kind of lackadaisical without concentration. That's a lot of it too. So it's about rhythm, it's about range of motion. They're not technique drills, they're drills to strengthen you through the various phases of the stride, So yeah. Yeah.
All right. So, uh, this question also came from I was listening to the podcast you did with other strength coaches, and you mentioned like John Pryor and Eddie Jones, what they did,
Ooh,
and uh Japanese rugby team. Um, and uh, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think at a certain point they implement a lot of like what's so called like the France boss system
yeah.
or like the coordination based training.
Yes.
Uh, kind of share your thoughts on that? Because I remember like
Yeah.
uh last time we talked or like other podcasts we talked, coordination is a big thing for you. Like
Absolutely.
the whole body connection is a big thing for you. But like France Bosch kind of took it to another level to like
Yeah.
all those alcohol. So can you kind of share your thoughts on like yeah the
Well,
overall.
look, we were the first people to bring France over here in 2006. I had him at my gain conference twice. He's a good guy. He's a really bright guy. He's figured out that the more mysterious he makes it, the more money he can make now. So it's pretty simple. Strength is coordination training. This is my definition based on his input. Coordination training with appropriate resistance. Okay. And I've taken elements of his system and adapted it to the various things that I have to do and use um, bits and appropriate pieces of his strength training methodology based on the athlete and the sport. John Pryor brought France over for 6 weeks and embedded in the program. And I don't want to speak for John. He and France are very close. And there's nothing negative. I'm not anti-France or something like that. But and I think what John did, I know what he did is he adapted it, to what they needed to do uh, for rugby. And Eddie Jones is an iconic coach. He's really smart. And so what they did is they used various Boschian methodology and other things. So they would use an exercise to lead into a rugby skill movement or something, like that. So it was blended within rugby, that's the key, and this is the key, I think, for the adaptation for basketball, for American football. Jimmy Radcliffe, who's a good friend, and John Pryor's one of the best. Jimmy's the best. And at University of Oregon with Chip Kelly, they changed college football. And basically, the strength training was all explosive. It was fast. Um, the drills were done at a high tempo, and things that were done for speed development led into a speed movement with football and that. So I think France has had a positive influence on training methodology and what we have to do. I just think that you have to learn, there's a certain complexity there, which is I think you have to learn and learn how to adapt those principles to your system, is what it comes down to. I know, for example, they tried to institute a friend of mine that used to coach with the White Sox is with the Pirates, and they brought Franz in and basically fired him after 2 years because they didn't renew his contract because it was just he couldn't adapt it to the environment there that they needed. Now, one of his disciples has stayed there and, done a pretty good job, but you don't have to do everything with water bags, unstable loads. That's part of a much, much bigger picture. Okay. And I would prefer, as I want to look closely at the mode of resistance. I do think that in quote strength coaches are too fixated on the bar, okay, because you can lift more. But I'm going to use more. I'm going to use sandbags, dumbbells, kettlebells, and then we're talking about heavy dumbbells and stuff like that. Where I can get greater ranges of motion with a certain amount of rhythm and tempo, that I can't do with the bar. So,
Cool. So one thing that France talk about, like especially for like athletes, is I think it's what he called cold contraction.
yeah.
When like doing high speed running, the lower legs basically do cold contraction, and it's not really like a triple extension for every steps. So kind of share like your thoughts on this.
Well, I don't There's two things. I mean, the co-contractions occur naturally. That's the way the body has to move. Okay, I can't focus on co-contraction. Triple extension is a little, and I've used the term, is a misnomer. We never get true triple extension. We might on the first extension out of the blocks, but we know from going back 40 years of biomechanical analysis. So emphasizing this idea of co-contraction. It's never been, and maybe it's because I don't understand it. So I don't want to teach something I don't 100% understand, but it's not something I've talked to. I talk to with the athletes a lot. I think you can put them in position where these things occur, and your strength training exercises, with this reflex idea where you stumble into a lunge or something like that is going to force those type of actions. That's the way I see it. Rather than, again, if we're starting to try to make things conscious, now we have to be careful of what I call roboticizing, too. So yeah,
Nice, nice. This is
come and
awesome.
watch. Come and watch. You're far away, but if you could get in Concord and get here, when I picked my granddaughter up, we walked through the garage and she said, Grandpa, I'm going to work out. So we've got all the stuff in the garage. So she'll put out stuff and she's 5 years old. She just turned 5. And it's fascinating to watch the things that she comes up with, to catch herself, to move, and that. And my feeling is the more I've watched her and watch her and her friends play on the playground, maybe what we've done is we've taken away some of this um, um, just reflexive action and problem solving that kids do with, in play and that, So again, I'm at a different phase in my career, and I'm not coaching somebody day to day. If I were, we'd be in, well, I talked about Elise last time. You can see her jersey back there. The problem is she's playing for 6 weeks now at a world championship. So we've got to stay with really, really some basic stuff, to go from competition to competition. But if we ever had an off season, which we might next year, A lot of that stuff will be in there. She likes it too. It makes you feel really good. It makes you feel connected rather than I don't know how you've been, and I've done some pretty stupid stuff in the weight room, heavy, heavy, heavy. And I remember walking out of the weight room, well, sort of crawling out of the weight room, like, God, my back hurts. Where you do the reflex strength training, and and that you just feel excited, neurally excited, connected in that. And I think that's the way you want your athletes to play in that. And they may not put numbers up in the weight room, but who cares? Unless you're a weightlifter. So,
Nice, nice. All right. Last part of this podcast, I want to ask you like, um, I remember last time we talked about like isolated joint testing, how that's like kind of like how that's kind of like not helping us, right? And I like all my mentors, like Coach Wu, Dan Path, they all agree with you, and that's like I also agree with that, but still, um, at
it's
this era, I know you kind of talk on Joe Smith's podcast for a little bit. Like, why are there more and more like all these Achilles tendon injury right now?
well, it's I could read it to you. I just put it on another like forum that I'm on with all these Dan's on there and all those people are on there. And look, let's start at the hamstring. The Nordic hamstring exercises isolates the hamstring at one joint. And they say, well, it works eccentrically. Yes, it does. But the hamstring works eccentrically, isometrically, and concentrically rapidly. Okay. And it works at two joints. Okay. And it has multiple functions, not just flexion and extension of the knee. Okay. Now go to groin or ab and adductors and the allied structures. So now you have the Copenhagen routine. Try doing the Copenhagen. It hurts. It really puts a strain on the adductors. Okay. Now, so those are and those injuries have become they haven't reduced, and those exercises are designed to reduce those injuries. I don't believe me. Go look at data. It's right out there in front. The Aussie Rules Football publishes openly. The NFL doesn't. The NBA doesn't. But all you have to do is look in the paper every day. Okay. And then now, for some reason, all of a sudden, about 7 years ago, everybody decided that we needed to do calf raises, especially seated calf raises. Because I saw somebody on the internet about 3 weeks ago. The soleus is the strongest muscle in the body. And I'll just say, plain and simple, you can beep this out. Bullshit. It works in concert with the gastroc, and those muscles don't uh, impart force into the ground. They help decelerate the foot and control pronation, timing of pronation and supination. So now we've done, and I won't say what team, but I saw a player a few weeks ago doing seated calf raises religiously, and he's out for the first 3 games this year in the NBA. Okay. And I see it over and over and over. Calf pulls have gone sky high, and Achilles ruptures have gone sky high. And if you want to train the calves, just jump rope and sprint. Jump rope and sprint backwards. If you feel like you need to get more stress on gastroc soleus, sprint backwards downhill and no, I got it wrong. Backwards uphill and walk backwards downhill. But you really don't need to do too much of that. So yeah, it's a funny place and time, but because we can measure it now, and we have these silos where we have sports medicine over here, sports science over here, strength and conditioning, maybe whatever somebody over here. They never talk to each other, and everybody's driven today by what Jimmy Radcliffe calls a therapeutic model. And a therapeutic model is you listen to it. I'm sure with the organization you're with, you'll hear it. We can't do that because it's risky. We can't do this. We can't do that. Instead of looking at what can you do, and history is on our side. History is on our side. So I think, but the more machines you have that you can measure and they go bling and there's lights and you generate numbers, the sports medicine and the sports science people really love that. And nobody wants to take responsibility for the injuries too. That's my other thing. Stand up and be a man or a woman and take responsibility and think about what you're frickin' doing. Your job is the most important job we have, and what we do is availability. Can that player, when the referee says play ball, are they ready to go? I rest my case.
Nice,
I
nice,
have to go to a court of law or something. So,
nice, nice. I know I said that's the last part of the podcast, but last question before I let it go. I promise it's the last question. So,
okay. I've got, yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay time wise. Yeah.
so, I feel like strength and conditioning are like going backwards in terms of like in terms of like helping athlete get better. The coach should actually focus on numbers, right? And I feel like it's kind of same in like the rehab world. I feel like
Yeah.
we're not doing a good job in terms of like helping athletes return to play, return to performance, especially with all these ACL going on. So
Yeah.
like, uh, can I kind of share like your thoughts process on like ACL return to play?
Well, uh, you need to have Bill Knowles on. Bill Knowles is a colleague of mine, mentored him some. He's gone past me. He's done, you name it, high profile athlete. He's rehabbed him from various injuries. And it doesn't have to be career ending. It's not a race to get him back, it's a race to get him better. That's the key thing, and I I think that we need to think a little bit more about what we're doing, not so much in prevention. You're right. Strength and conditioning has gone backward. So we're not doing multiple plane movements that will inoculate them to a certain extent from ACL injuries. And uh, yeah, and the return to play uh, process, and that Bill is a pioneer in this, uh, is boy, it's labor intensive. So he'll bring a player in sometimes 3 days post-op, and they'll be in the pool. They have waterproof things and that. So movement is the best therapy that you can have. And yeah, but it's return to play in high level situations has become a cover your ass situation because nobody wants to be responsible if the athlete is re-injured. And I know my job with it was a long time ago now, okay, but we did things that nobody was doing and nobody's still doing. So I had a rehab trainer. I was in charge of him and rehab. So I was with the trainer would do what he was supposed to do, and then he would come with me, and the two of us with the player would do the functional activities that we needed to do to get the player back fully functional, able to play without, niggling problems and that. So it's a it's a whole tie. I really recommend you get Bill Knowles on and talk to him. Again, he was a pioneer and he's out leading and now with the other injury we have that's the most everybody loves to look at hip labrum tears. I mean, 25 years ago, you never heard of a hip labrum tear. I'm sure I have hip labrum tears from when I played football and then, but because we can image and see, and that's the other problem, because we can image everything, MRI stands for might reveal injury. So we're going to find stuff we don't need to find. That's the other problem that's occurred today. As soon as a player, I don't know about because you're a G League player, but an NBA player uh, twists his ankle, he's going to be imaged. I mean, a lot of times in the stadium, and that. So what do you see? False positives, false negatives, that kind of stuff. Sometimes ignorance was bliss. That's a crazy way to put it. I don't know what to end on that, but oh
Yeah.
my gosh. We live in a funny world. We're so advanced and so in some ways we're so backward. We've gone so far backward. It makes me it makes me angry
Yeah,
to
it's
be honest.
like we're focusing on the wrong stuff.
Yeah, like we've got more money, we have more time, we have highly educated people, but why are we not? And obviously performance has increased, right? Performance has improved, but the human cost in terms of injury and is is too high. Is too high for me for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I
okay,
totally agree. All right, that's the last question I have. So for those who are interested in what we're talking about today, I know you have a gain network and you're gonna have a new book soon.
right.
So can you like share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So if you want to find out, it won't be on either one for about 2 more weeks. It's thegainnetwork.com or Hammer Media, HMMR Media.com. My collaborator on the book is Martin Bingasser, who we do our podcast together. Um, uh, the book is called Building the Complete Athlete. It's about 220 pages, and it's pretty much an in-depth follow-up to the Human Kinetics book from 20 years ago, and reflecting of all the things that I've learned. Uh, I'm on Instagram, and I don't know. Yeah, just search for my name. I'm on X. That's at Coach Gambetta, I think. And on LinkedIn. What else is there? And I'm trying to switch mainly over to Substack, but the process has been slow, and we will have a Gain event this year in July. We're calling it the Gain Last Dance. So if you're interested in that, just keep checking. And it's a special. It really is a special thing. We have had the best of the best. A lot of the people we talked about here are there, and we're going to get together for 3 days this time, and then going forward, just because the sheer um, difficulty of bringing everybody together and organizing it. So we'll probably only do 1 day things after this, just because it's simpler. But so it's the last opportunity. And you become a member of the gay network, and anybody who comes now will be lifetime members. So an extensive library of past gains. It's pretty special. I've been very, very fortunate to have the colleagues that I have that have been willing to participate and share in that. So, and I thank you for the opportunity to come back on. Your questions are incisive, and appreciate that. So
No,
it's good.
I appreciate your time, Coach.
It's good. Thank you.